And as Reverend Lane has been mentioning, that this month our theme has been Living in Everyday Wonder. And I was invited / told to speak today. Thanks, Ellen. And the subject for today was curiosity. And the first thing that came into my head was that old saying, curiosity killed the cat. And my first thought was, that's not terribly spiritual. So I thought, well, let me look up where that comes from. Well, it comes from paying attention to other people's business and being nosy and gossiping. And I thought, that's not terribly spiritual. So I named my talk that the cat is okay, because we're talking about a different type of spirituality today. We're talking about the idea of curiosity as a spiritual practice. And I hope that I'm going to give you some insight as how you can increase the spirituality and increase the curiosity in your own life. Brian Glasser talked about that type of curiosity we don't want to talk about. He talked about this noisy, prying kind of curiosity that's purely invasive in its nature, and how it arises from the listener's need to know all the details about a person's situation. Perhaps so they can gossip, perhaps so they can seem like they know more than you. And he points out that this is even more subtly found as an invasive curiosity when you ask people how they're doing just so that you can feel proud of your own listening skills, so that you can pat yourself on the back. And this is not the type of curiosity we're talking about today. So I hope to bring you to a higher level of curiosity. For I want to talk about curiosity in the spiritual context. The curiosity that's about being interested and concerned with what's going on around you, with being eager to understand your own thinking, your own way of being, and other people's experiences and perspectives. I want you to have the curiosity to learn and to grow. And I want you to be motivated in your listening by God's love. And from this point of view, your curiosity becomes a spiritual awakening. As Reverend Lane talks about often, if you've had any of her classes, she likes us to stay in our own hula hoop, to stay in our own realm of what we can truly influence and know, which of course is ourselves. So mind your own business. That's not the curiosity we're talking about. The spiritual curiosity I'm talking about isn't even the old childhood wonder or the ordinary inquisitiveness, not to mention that kind that kills the cat. The dictionary comes closer to defining what I'm talking about when it says that curiosity is a strong desire to know or learn something. I do want to take a second to talk about that childhood wonder, though. As kids, we were curious cats. And if you don't remember that for yourself, pay attention to any child as they look upon the world with a sense of wonder. Hang out with any toddler in that why stage as they ask you why, over and over again. They know curiosity. And I can remember a time when I knew curiosity. I was about 10 years old, and I was visiting in Ohio during the winter. I was a Florida girl, so ice and snow was a big deal for me. And I was ice skating for the first time ever. And my dad was this amateur cinematographer. He had an 8mm camera. For those of you who don't know, those have tapes. They don't go on forever. And they're also silent movies. And so he plans very carefully how he's going to spend his tape. And the last few minutes of the tape were meant to be filming me and my glorious first ice skating adventure. And as he pans the camera slowly over to me, I come to a dead halt in my skating. And I bend down on my knees and I stare into the ice. And my parents are off camera taking advantage of the fact that it's a silent movie because they're screaming, "Skate, Heather, skate!" But no, curiosity has taken over because I have noticed in that ice, close to the surface, a fish was caught as it froze. And that fish exploded into a magnificent fireworks of fishy guts that were frozen there in time for me. It was amazing. It's in my head right now. And the curiosity that overtook me, the wonder of just thinking about what was that fish thinking heading so close to the surface? And where did those guts go? Because there was so much spread out so far in that little tiny body. How did they all fit? But I want you to hang on to that piece of curiosity. Now, I'm not saying you got to think about the fish guts at all, but think about that sense of fascination. Think about that sense of wonder that you had as a child. And see if you can bring that forward into your adult life. Can you pay attention to what's going on and see the fascination of our world around you still? Blythe Evans wrote, "In the quest for truth, curiosity is a valuable trait to have. A spirit of interest and inquiry, a willingness to delve into something new can open the way to progress and fresh ideas, especially when it pertains to the nature of what is true. Curiosity about what we don't know, openness to new ideas, and above all, a desire to better understand truth with a capital T and adhere to it opens our hearts to better apprehend and understand God and our true nature." This is the type of curiosity that I'm wanting for you. I'm wanting you to keep hold of that curious cat inside of you, but come from this spirit, come from this point of view, to find a curiousness that leads to a deeper knowing of yourself and to a deeper knowing of Spirit's truth. And why is this so important? Well, I want you to think of yourself as curious so you can push past the boundaries of your life, so you can try new things. I want you to question the assumptions you have about life and to learn new truths. I want you to gain a richer experience of life through this curiosity. Our founder, Ernest Holmes, talked about this as being open at the top, ever willing to learn more, ever willing to revise our opinions, ever willing to evolve and to change. Bertrand Russell talked about this openness when he says, "In all my affairs, it's a healthy thing now and then to hang a question mark on the things you have long taken for granted." This is the curiosity I want for you today. For as we sincerely desire to better know the divine truth, we find that it will prove itself to us. As we see how our thoughts and our prayers are manifest around us, we automatically deepen our faith in the knowingness that God is all around, that God is within us. There is no time, no place, no situation without God's presence. And having this knowledge at every level of your being will free you from fear, will free you from worry, will free you from feelings of lack, and will even free you from grief. For God is all there is, and God is always good. When I say spiritual curiosity, I'm also talking about here this constant commitment to meeting every single person, event, and feeling that shows up in your life with a deep, abiding curiosity. To live in a state of patient and observant noticing, rather than reacting out of pure habit. To strongly desire intimacy with yourself and with life itself. This is the form of spiritual practice that we can all benefit from. Curious cats are going to inquire gently within, seeing what they can learn about themselves as they witness life without judgment. Speaking of judgment, I wrote about that in an article this week for our newsletter, and I wanted to touch base a little bit more on how you can move into an unjudgmental state, because curiosity is a part of this. So, philosophers and physicians have said before that the way to change your reactive habits is to intervene between a stimulus, what's going on in the world, and your response or reaction to that stimulus. To pause and allow space for a different reaction. For within that pause is your chance to think, your chance to wonder, your chance to be curious. Curiosity is a big part of that pause. As I pause, I can ask questions. I can open myself up to my inner wisdom. I can calm myself. I can illuminate myself to the truth of the situation, the truth of my being. This is where I can get in touch with what do I want new in my life, instead of that knee-jerk reaction that will lead to what I've always had. When I was a reading teacher, I had an exercise that I would encourage my students to get into this place of wonder. And I wanted them to do it because I wanted them to pay attention to what they're reading to, I gotta admit. But the exercise was, they need to complete the sentence, I wonder blank. And so I was hoping they would wonder about why the author wrote that, or how they knew about it, or whatever it might be. But for you, this same sense of questioning, I wonder, can lead to this spiritual curiosity that I want for you. For instead of leaping to judgment, where you know where that person's coming from, or why that person's right, or labeling them right or wrong at all, if you just sit in that space of wondering, I find that this exercise can be very helpful in that pause to help you move away from judgment and into the knowingness that we are all one, that we are all connected, that we all have a humanness about us that leads us to making poor choices or making mistakes or making the right choices based on who we are that does not have anything to do with what I realize for my truth. When I look through a lens of love, I can see that we are all doing our very best at life. I can see that I am no different from you fundamentally. And I can accept this imperfection in all of us, including myself. And I can remember that we are truly only one, that we all come from one God, that we all share one mind. Now, this idea of spiritual curiosity is not a new one. I don't pretend to have invented it. And I'll even admit that I did a little bit of research on the internet to help me with this. One thing I learned, and the internet's a wonderful tool for curiosity. Some people talk about spiritual curiosity going as far back as the story of Moses in the Old Testament, if you know about him walking upon that burning bush and talking about how that was curiosity in motion. And I learned that Albert Einstein talked about holy curiosity in the 1940s, and he used this to describe the freedom of inquiry that he thinks is very important to any scientist. And for me, I think science and our philosophy of science of mind are very much doing the same thing, that we are looking at the world to find truth in all of its forms. So when you think about it, you could even say this curiosity is what has driven mankind. The philosophers have been looking at the world with curiosity for thousands of years, wondering, inquiring about the big questions of the universe and of life. So how do you develop this curiosity as part of your spiritual practice? As I mentioned before, when I have that pause, I help have increased compassion and acceptance. I can also let this curiosity increase my sense of power. And I'm not talking about that aggressive muscle mass power. When I'm talking about that quiet kind of power that you have within you as curiosity strengthens your faith. You develop this knowingness of who you are and what you believe that allows you to walk in this world with a powerful sense of knowingness. This power allows you to stay in your beliefs and your priorities no matter what is happening around you. You become a rock in the river of life, and no matter how turbulent the current is, you remain steadfast, anchored in your power. I've also talked about oneness, and curiosity helps us see this oneness. Jesus saw the oneness in all of us when he said, "He who hath seen me hath seen the Father." And of course, in our philosophy, we believe that Jesus is an example of how we all can be. For the Creator can only create from itself, and thus we are all the same in our essence. There is a oneness between God and man, and back of the unseen is the Creator. And while it might be hard to see this when you're immersed in the illusion of the duality that we have as our human experience, this is the ultimate truth. God and man are inseparable and indivisible. And you sense this with your curiosity. As we get curious about life, we become more connected to life, and we see this interconnectedness. Science recognizes the idea of interconnectedness also in many ways. You might have heard about the butterfly effect. Stated simply, it says small actions like a butterfly's beating of its wings lead to more and more sequence of events. And eventually, those small actions can lead to very large and seemingly unrelated things, like a typhoon. And this is certainly true in our own lives. I'm sure that you can think about a sequence of events that started with an action and ended with something that was totally surprising, but yet related. This idea of everything being connected is, again, part of the oneness of the universe. Furthermore, when I'm curious, like looking at that exploded fish, I get to see that God has created a universe that is endlessly fascinating. And that fascination is something that I hope all of you are able to hold on to in your adulthood. From the complex laws of nature to a bird floating in the breeze, there's an endless number of things that you can look for and be fascinated by. And the more I'm aware of this, and the more I learn and experience life through this lens of curiosity, the more reverence I develop for God, the creator of all. Peter Abelard said, "The key to wisdom is this: constant and frequent questioning. For by doubting, we are led to the question, and by questioning, we arrive at the truth." Now, I'm not saying your curiosity has to involve doubting, but it might. And I am saying that questioning of everything and everyone can be a very invaluable tool. And the most powerful questioning is of yourself. As you practice this inner curiosity with you and your cat, may you remember that as you question yourself, the answer lies within you. For there is a part of God within you that knows all. And how can you access that part? Well, meditation is classically a great way of getting in touch with that inner intuition. Our founder, Ernest Holmes, talks about the importance of meditation as helping us being spiritually alert. Because when we meditate, we become very aware of that God within. And as we deepen our connection to spirit, we find that we keep that listening attitude outside of that meditative time. That listening attitude can lend to a consistent and persuasive attention to life. So our consciousness may become a transmitter of that which is beyond human thought. This also involves curiosity. Spiritual curiosity can even help evaluate, oh gosh, that's not even the right word. Make higher that conversation you have. Right? Instead of idle chit-chat with someone, we can dive deeper into an authentic connection by wondering about each other. We can leave behind our focus on ourselves and our lives and use curiosity to learn about others. As I learn more in my practitioner studies, I am understanding better and better how this focus on listening is so powerful. It starts with listening to myself, then it goes to listening to the God within me, and eventually I evolve this deep ability to listen to everyone. And this is really what's at heart of that connection between a practitioner and their client, this deep listening, where the practitioner is able to hear what is said and what is not said. In keeping curiosity alive while working with the practitioner, we are able to help them understand what are the beliefs behind the behaviors. What is the cause of the forms that they see in their lives? And if you haven't experienced lessons with a practitioner, this is my pitch to try it. Ernest Holmes also said, "Right spiritual knowing is an intelligent activity of thought which reveals pure spirit as the invisible cause to everything." All of the things I've talked about today contribute to your right spiritual knowing, and all will lead you to the truth, namely, spirit is the cause of everything, seen and unseen. So I move you to action by asking you this week, can you cultivate the mindfulness of curiosity? Can you be aware of every moment and every person around you? Can you welcome wonder into your conversations with others? Can you deepen your awareness consciously by being mindful or practicing meditation? Can you notice how everything is connected? Can you look for opportunities and growth and learning? And can you remember that wonderful things are with us every day, waiting for us to behold them? So let your cat be curious. And not only will your cat be okay, but your cat will thrive. Thank you for listening.